Okay, let's start. Good morning, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'm Matthias Zimmermann, co-lead of Eclipse Scout, working at BSI, and you?
I'm Andreas Höckel. I'm pretty much the same co-project lead of Eclipse Scout, but more the technical guy, and therefore I pass back to you.
Start the session. We see Scouty here. There's some cute-looking girls in the background. Scouty, of course, is really excited. He's wearing his best hat and thinking about marriage. But, well, later in the session we see it's actually not so much about marriage, but more about having friends. So, okay, let's move to the actual topic.
What is actually your purpose for being here?
Well, you see there is this very big and important application, and I'm going to evaluate the UI framework. For many users, for many years, this will be a really important task. We should do it right, because if we mess up, well, we have to throw away the application.
Sounds actually as well to be a funny task.
Well, yes, I'm pretty proud. So,
okay, go on.
Yeah, desktop. I think we might be doing a desktop application.
You probably should ask Kai about which technology.
Yeah, he's looking really friendly, no? I should ask the guy. I'm just kind of afraid. Swing is dead, and SWT is dead, and JavaFX, it's not even born yet, really, on the first channel. So
you probably should once think about web.
Web, okay. Yeah, web. That seems to be modern. Good. So yeah, let's do web.
Web is a great idea, yeah. And what technology do you choose?
Well, I did not really so far consider exactly which technology. I feel we probably should go. Well, it's JSF. That seems to be the Java standard. No,
a standard like let me think, Swing.
Okay. Yeah. Let's use GVT then. I've heard good things about, and it's Google now. That's a good company. So.
Okay, let's go with GVT. What happens in 5 years?
Well, Google is big, no? So it will still be here.
It's kind of big, yeah. And what's about in 10 years?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a technical guy. Can anybody help me out here, please?
No ideas.
You see, the fact is, it's going to be 10 years now, and not wanting to rewrite the application in 3 years or 7 years. I'd rather have something that I can rely on and not having to do things over and over.
It's definitely not trivial.
So, well, this is kind of the setup. So can we learn from the past? And this is actually the topic of the task. We want to briefly talk about two large projects. We have at BSI that have a similar scope, large application, lives for 5 or 10 plus years. And the two things are, the first is the counter solution for Swiss Postal Service, and the second one is our commercial product, the BSI CRM solution. And let's start with the counter solution for the postal services in Switzerland.
Okay, the counter solution is a pretty huge application which serves all the postal customers in Switzerland. It runs on about more than 1,500 different locations, and has a lot of interfaces to hardware like scanners, printers, card readers, yeah, whatever. It was originally developed in Centura in 1994, and yeah, somewhere Centura was kind of old school and people wanted to do more modern software, and we decided to move the whole application to an Eclipse RCP application. Yeah, this movement is not that easy because it's a pretty large application. You can't do a one-shot. It's too risky that some counters doesn't work anymore, and then we tried to do a step-by-step migration. That means we integrated old Centura forms into an Eclipse Ridgeclimb platform. When we go to the next slide, this is like the big picture architecture, one of the simplest architecture of this application. And what I mentioned before is we have like the legacy application still running and just integrated the forms into the Eclipse RCP. Communication there is via Windows messaging. And therefore, we started with just the Eclipse RCP stack and like a core application. And plugged in all the legacy forms in this core application, which is more or less like the border around. And then we start to move step by step, form by form in the new technology in SWT. And right now we are almost done. We have, I think, like less than 10 forms left to migrate, and it was a pretty successful story. One of the main features is that we have the UI stack in the core application. That means we have fully abstracted the whole UI layer. Yeah, a clear separation of business code and the UI makes it easy for further changes.
Maybe can you go back?
I don't know how to go back.
Okay.
Probably
this person here, you have to consider that roughly it's a team of 20 software engineers right now working on that application, and they have been doing this since 2008. Maybe they were not that big at that time, but one person here considered to that team over so many years is really not a lot. So this means that if SWT is no longer wanted as a customer, we can replace this with some other technology. The estimated effort we have to give is one person a year, and the customer can sit on something that has a future in the UI technology. This really helps that project to be future-proof and gives a lot of security for the investment our customer is doing in that area.
It's really not that much.
Now let's have a look at our product, which is kind of a customer relationship management system or contact center management system. On top of it, there are different, you have some retail solution, an insurance solution, and maybe something else I cannot recall right now. Anyway, there's a bunch of customers we have. They sit all on top of that stack. Facts, it's an application that is constantly evolving since 1999. Currently is an Eclipse Scout application, 1.5 million lines of code, 70,000 users, bunch of installations, and expected lifetime is longer than 10 years. We have a bunch of applications, installations that's also there for longer than 10 years. We cannot give a good average because typically the customers we have, they don't go away, they stay. So we have many applications as we are growing constantly. They're maybe 2 or 3 years old. That's not because their lifetime is 2 or 3 years, it's just because we do have the customer only since 2 or 3 years. We have probably lost one significant customer, but this was just because the guy was swallowed by a larger company, and then they were forced to use another technology. That's basically how it dropped out. So we really try to focus on long-term relationships, so this long-term stuff is really on our mind constantly. This is the application architecture. Basically, you have on top, you have the CRM server, the CRM client, and this is the business code. Then you have the framework code, and on the bottom there is the Eclipse platform. What is interesting here is that the rendering engines are separated out in the framework. We have one for SWT, one for Swing, and one currently for RAP to support web and mobile stuff. So we do HTML5 using RAP currently. The interesting thing is that all the business code is programmed against an abstract model of the UI. So basically the model is written in the business code, and here I don't really care which of these rendering engines is going to render the application at runtime. This again gives me a very good future for the application. So if Swing is really no longer wanted by anybody or whatever, these three things, I can add boxes here, which per default more or less makes the application here running on the new UI technology.
I hope in 1 year we can present JavaFX there.
Yeah, we have started the university project, and we're slowly going in that direction to explore it. And currently the main product is not really yet moving to Java FX. We're still in discussion what we're going to do there. Because basically, we have the same. Initially, we don't really know what is going to happen with UI technology. It's kind of hard if you really need to pin down one. So that's why we're happy here. The cool thing is that the business code is really not affected a lot by new technology changes, and Scout is providing these rendering engines. And if there's a new UI technology becoming mainstream, we just add this component and are basically, again, in a good situation. This gives us a lot of security from the investments on our side. Okay. So far, we go to the conclusion. We want to look back, and maybe you want to say something about it.
I would like to say something to the FileMax project, because you don't have to use Scout to have a clear separation of the UI. We just made some measurements over the source code, and we found out only 10% of the source code is UI technology, which is clearly separated and makes it quite easy. This is this one person here.
Can I make a small correction? The 10% is actually more effort than source code. The source code is actually less, but we realized that typically we spend more, on average we spend more time on the UI than we spend on other parts of the framework.
It's probably 9.8. You're right. No,
Thank you so much.
And we see the large part of the application is business code, which makes really sense to focus on business and don't focus on some framework, whatever stuff, like UI and framework stuff is like jobbing, progress monitoring, services, remote calls, and whatever. And we see the FileMax framework part is around 25%. And now I'm interested in the CRM.
Okay, let's now look at the CRM. Yeah, you realize it's...
Oh, you're cheating.
Okay, I'm cheating slightly. I guess the UI efforts are actually, let's say 11%, and the rest here is maybe 14%, and this just sums up to... We had the exact numbers, but they were so close that we decided to have 2 times the identical pictures, because just 2 instances, this is the typical distribution of application if you're working in that area. So it's really a common message here that you have to spend time here, but you should be prepared, or you should be in a position where you can spend most of the time actually adding value to the business and not dealing too much with that thing here.
It would be fun if you would do some measurements on your projects with what kind of numbers you came up. And I'm pretty sure it's more or less the same. And the funny thing is, you don't have to use Scout actually, because we have the same effort to change the UI technology.
Well, we come back to that one. But what we did with Scout is we looked back into the history where the people were really booking their times working on the Scout framework to see how the efforts distribute over time. And we came up roughly with this distribution. This is per year how many person-year effort we put into the Scout framework. This might seem a lot, but you have to keep in mind that we have like 40 projects or between 20 and 30 projects working constantly in parallel on top of the Scout framework. So there are so many customers, so many small things they affect. This field is not working in that specific order. There are some pixels wrong. If I do exactly that, then it does not render as it should. So there's a constant stream of bugs that come down to the framework, and we need to fix. That's pretty much how the effort is justified that we have here, because, well, as more products and projects you put on top of Scout, the more effort you need to put in the framework. It's just covering a wider area of the problems that might arise. That's why here you see a larger effort than initially. Like when we have been here at the BSI company, we maybe have had a third of the applications that we have now. And
actually, what are these numbers? Is it
this is
days per year?
No, it's person years. It's person years.
Okay. And another funny thing, what are these bumps?
Well, yes, we had to look at that, and if we look at the bumps, then we can split what we have seen framework. If you split away the UI part, we see that the bumps are mostly in the UI part and not so much in the other part of the framework. And the real bumps were in the initial bump when we had a technology change from Scout initially. We went from some Windows property software to to Java XML combination. And there we had to add Swing as a UI layer. Then eventually we moved this Scout on top of the Eclipse platform. This was around 2006. This is when we did add the SWT rendering engine. And finally, customers told us that it would be really important to support web. That's when we added here. Here we did 2 or 3 detours. We were looking at Wicket, Vadin, and finally used Eclipse Wrap, because progress with Eclipse Wrap for our case was the quickest. And here is still kind of large. That's when we did add mobile support with the Kepler release. And now I assume that we're going to bleed a bit longer, because web and mobile are still kind of young compared to SWT and Swing. So we expect to be still a kind of bug fixing phase in the coming year or two.
You mentioned Wrap. What gives you the guarantee that Wrap is the right in the next 5 years or 10 years?
I don't need that guarantee.
Why?
I add a new UI renderer.
Okay. That means over the time you changed 3 times the UI layer.
Yeah.
With Vmax, we just developed SWT. So as easy as 1, 2.
Yes, you're a single project. With our CRM, we realized that in average we have a UI technology change every 4 years. It typically costs us more than 1 person year to build a new rendering engine and then to support it. Then we have this exponential decay of bugs that are introduced by the new rendering engine. And the cool thing is that less than 3% of customer code is actually affected by UI change. If I look at the overall distribution of the efforts for a single project, it's even much less. But it's really a minor change in a project setup if we exchange the UI layer when we compare to the complete costs of the project. And basically, this is the trick. In contrary to the counter application at Swiss Post, we can share the costs or share the burden among many different installations. So even if 1.5 years or 2 years seems a lot of effort, if we share that over 40 or 50 projects, and as the community around Scout is growing, there will be more that can take advantage of the sharing effect. It's really like many small fish are stronger than a bigger fish. This is really the key point that we'd like to.
I'm getting quiet.
Well, no, I mean, counter application is cool, come on.
Yeah, but I have to.
They could move to Scout.
I have to build the whole UI layer exchange to 1 customer. It's going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, it is. Well, let's wrap up. First of all, we didn't really talk about the first point, don't mix UI code and business code. But for this talk, we assume that you're aware that you should separate the 2 things. Unfortunately, in industry, there are sometimes projects which don't do that clear separation. And basically, this means that after a couple of years, you really have to rewrite the complete application, because the application is such a mess in the code, there's no other way. But this is really not best practice, so we did not want to spend a lot of time in that area. Then the next point, you should not marry specific UI technologies. So this is really a point that if your application is going to live many years, let's say 10 plus years, and this is typically true for any application that has, let's say, 1 or 2 million lines of codes, and there's a bunch of them out in the wild. So many projects should think about technology changes in the long term and not just read the new blogs, magazines, and say, well, that's good, let's use this for the application. But yeah, it's basically don't trust crystal balls. If you think something is cool and hot today and the company is big behind it, there's no guarantee that the company does not come next year and say, well, we decided that for the future we need this new technology. And of course, the other one is still kind of supported, or at least less dead, a little bit alive. If they don't want to do that, they typically push out the application into open source. In a way, it's like, well, if somebody cares to maintain, you may feel free to do so, but then you have, again, to pull resources to make it worse doing it. So it's really a good idea to not have the idea that you know what will be in 5 years or in 10 years. Now, come to the brighter side. As we already said, you should think long term and, of course, abstract UI technologies. And have friends. I mean, considers technologies as your friends, and friends come and go. So you should be prepared for that pattern and not rely really on that. Well, somebody said in a keynote, friends come and go, but foes accumulate. We did not talk about foes, so that's not really the focus here. And well, yeah, use Scout and stay single. That's pretty much it.
We have to say that, of course.
Thank you. And please fill out the rating for the talk in the
And
page.
ask questions.
And ask questions. We are here now for questions. We have also a booth number 10. You might have seen it. If you would like to know more about Scout, feel free to come to the booth, have chocolate, have a chat. Are there questions now, maybe? Yes?
Maybe it's a little bit off topic, but if you have your solution based on Eclipse CRM, how well does that scale in terms of number of clients?
It scales fair enough, let's say that. Yeah, we have pretty large customers, as you have seen before. And of course, it is the footprint of a web application is much bigger than of a rich bank, for sure. And usually we cluster the webs as the web server. We cluster that one, and we have one single server application. That's pretty much the pattern we do, and we do it on demand. If we see we have to cluster it, then just go on. And Scout is cluster, supports clusters.
Still, may I add a small point? We really mostly focus on business applications, and in that area, what we observe at customer sites is that if the thing is large, we get a couple of thousand users. And inside of that area, we are confident and comfortable that Scout is going to work fine. If you build consumer applications with hundreds of thousands or millions of customers, you probably want to look for something else. But maybe not, I don't know, we just don't know, because nobody really tried in that area to see how well it does scale to such large amounts of users. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, myself I used Vadin for that. Like it's a bit on the edge between business and consumer, but if it really starts going past that 1,000-2,000 mark, it gets tricky.
Yeah, I could imagine so.
We have evaluated body in RAP, and we decided for RAP because it's less chatty,
Okay.
less communication, and the small footprint.
Okay.
And that's exactly why we decided for RAP. But it's actually not that much, and it starts to be a problem with, I think, 2,000 up users or 1,000 up concurrent users. Yeah.
Maybe I was not careful enough to understand, but what is the role of Scout in this picture? So I didn't really understand. I don't know the project, so I would really appreciate if you could repeat it.
Yeah, you probably could.
What, should I use one of those, or we should go back to the CRM?
To the CRM.
I go back to the CRM.
Yeah, to the architecture.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, the difference between this VMAX, it's a pure RCP application, which doesn't use any framework, but they developed some more or less framework stuff for their own. And the Scout provides pretty much the same as the framework stuff in more or less every huge business application. And that's actually the Scout layer. And Scout is your question is, what is Scout about?
Yes, exactly.
Scout is a framework for creating in very short-term business applications. And you have a business model which gets rendered to a certain UI layer. Those are these boxes. What means whenever the UI layer changes, and that's our experience says that's the first thing who changes in relation to time, and then it's quite easy to just plug in a new UI layer.
And Scout covers until here on the Scout on the server side, And on the right-hand side, you should imagine that here's your IT landscape with Enterprise Service Bus, web services and stuff like that. And you would communicate from here to the Service Bus. Or you can also use a database connection from here if you have some local storage.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you have a web front end or you want to have web front end, then from this picture I would understand that you would still need one client for each front end user. But I can't really believe that it could be true.
Web server, Equinox OSGI, and here would be also web server in the web part. That means all the client stuff runs on a web server. And you just connect from the browser to the web server, and afterwards it tunnels to...
Maybe it's confusing because the slides here is unfortunately slightly dumped down. If you have the web scenario, you'll have here a web server as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's
And then you have browsers and mobile phones connecting over a URL to that web server over there.
So if I have 100 visitors on a website, then 100 Equinox OSGI.
No.
Start.
It's starting to be a problem if you have more than I say 500 concurrent users. Then you have to have a cluster. But till 500 concurrent users, that is something about I would say more than 2,000 users.
Yes.
Then you have only one instance.
So
of the
one
website.
instance is running and there is a web server on.
Yeah,
Exactly. And you just connect to a URL. And we separated as well in the web scenario. We separated the real server from the web server in order of being in separate domains.
So in the desktop case, you have a single client session here. In the web case, you have n client sessions that are running in the same thing.
That's
Depending
exactly
on how many
brain stuff.
Yes?
Perhaps I misunderstood a bit the point, but why should I be more confident the Scout project itself will have a longer life cycle than the GUI technologies that come current?
It's actually not a matter of Scout. It's a matter of using a framework which separates this UI-related stuff. Scout is only a joke because we are Scout guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why we try to present two approaches. One is not relying on Scout in any way, and the other one is to compare Scout. It's the question, are you going to build something on your own or do you use something? This is basically the two options you have. If you want to abstract UI layer, you either roll your own or use a framework that exists. If you don't feel comfortable with an external organization providing the framework for you, you have to write your own. But then you lose the sharing effect.
Okay, so your key point is this separation.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there another framework that would be that you could cite to as a comparison that would be that's out there that does at least that has the same strategy? It might not do it in the same fashion. Just
Yes, there
not
are.
only Scout as well. I'm kind of looking for an analogy somewhere.
There is an Eclipse CRM that is slightly older than Scout, which has kind of a similar approach. There's one pretty recent open source project which is called Open Dolphin, I believe, from KU in Basel, and they're going into similar directions. I don't know what exact scope is that they cover, but these are the open source alternatives that I know. On the commercial side, it might be something like Oracle ADF that is going into a similar direction, but it probably has a larger scope, and well, it's not free.
If you would have found something similar in the open source world, we wouldn't have started with the Scout project. We would have used these.
Understand.
And in the community, the BSI, how big is in the community?
Actually, Scout is a project, an Eclipse project by its own. We have our own EPP download package.
Concerning the committers.
Now there are 17 committers. We
Yeah.
have. So we have
17
pretty a large amount of committers that actually contribute to Scout. Currently there are only BSI employees. It's not because we want it to be like that, just adoption takes longer. It's like 3 years ago we've been in the release train for the first time. Slightly over 1 year ago we started to actually get revenues on the open source Scout strategy. And we have had a couple of contributions so far.
But it's starting to come. So the money side is coming and the contribution side is coming too. The forum is pretty active. We have on new forum threads, we typically have 100 or 200 views per day for new threads. It has started that a person we don't know starts to answer questions from another person we don't know. So I think the direction is good.
You have mentioned 1 to 1.5% year effort to integrate a new renderer.
Yeah.
What is the most work there?
Where the most effort is spent in that area? Well, it's kind of easy, you know. You have a new UI technology, and you get excited, or somebody gets excited, and then after 3 months you can see it, and it's really cool. Everybody loves it, and then starts the work. And then you have to add one or plus more years.
So 3 months evaluation, then the visibility.
No, not evaluation. It's a prototype where you can show to customers, and the customer thinks you're done, but you're not done.
The pixel movie starts.
And obviously many customers look for the same look and feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the view of the customer. No, he buys a commercial product at our company, and he doesn't care where the bug is. He just wants it fixed. And sometimes it's a business logic, sometimes it's a framework, sometimes UI code, sometimes it's further down, and we have to have temporary workarounds or open bugs at other projects. That's just how life is.
It's like writing a new E4 renderer. That's pretty much related. The E4 rendering engine and Scout rendering engine is, Scout goes to the last control, and E4 stops with views and menus and stuff.
But we're watching E4 because there may be something that we can.
We probably will marry E4.
or no, maybe we have it as a friend.
Probably,
Okay.
because if you design the forms, it's more naturally to generate them.
Yeah.
Not to write by hand.
Okay, I think we are done from the time. And if there are more questions, we're more than happy to answer them at our booth. I think it should be available if you want to. Thank you.